Guys, it's Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing, and I'm here with my weekly wrap up. So I read 3 books this week, 2 physical books, 1 audiobook, and I'm going to tell you all about them now. And I was taking part in the 1000 pages readathon this week as well, and I have vlogged it, so the vlog will be going up at the end of the week too. So the first book I finished this week was The Children of Jocasta by Natalie Haynes. You would have seen this in my library / book haul that I had in my weekly wrap up last week or the week before, I actually can't remember now. But this is a Greek kind of retelling of a Greek myth or a Greek story, and we are following, it's basically set in the Greek town of Thebes, and we are following, it's kind of like Antigone and Oedipus and the fables around them, and I don't know if fables is the right word, like the myths around those characters. And basically Natalie Haynes has just kind of put her own spin on this, on the kind of tragic tale around these characters. So we are following 2 different timelines. One of them is we're following Jocasta, who when she's 15 is married to the king of Thebes, who doesn't, it's not that he's not a nice man, but he doesn't really have much interest in her, and she's basically kind of left on her own, and then some really tragic things happen to her. And then we are following another character called, like, I kind of call her Ismene, or she's kind of called Izzy by her brothers and sisters, but we are following her years and years later. She's also growing up in Thebes, and she has kind of, her family are a little bit like they're thought of as kind of like cursed, and but she's also kind of felt safe in her family. She has her family, but then one day when she's in the palace, she is stabbed and she's kind of left for dead, and it kind of shakes her, and there's a mystery of like who organised this, who would want to hurt her. She's only like a 15-year-old girl, like why would someone want to hurt her? And there is this tragedy kind of that ensues because of this particular act, and we are following just basically how it came from Jocasta's time to Izzy's time, and just the story around the characters and what happened to them, and just basically just kind of a fun retelling of the Antigone and the Oedipus myths. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a very easy read. I flew through it, and like, it's not one, like, I liked it. It's one of these ones that I don't have like loads to say about it. I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoy Greek retellings. I just love seeing how authors bring these characters to life and kind of put a spin on these different tales that we may or may not have heard when we were growing up. I hadn't really read much about Thebes before. I'd kind of heard the names kind of in passing, but I hadn't really known that much about them, so it was kind of fun to kind of actually find out the myth behind this story as well afterwards. So I did enjoy it. It's not one I don't think that I will be like raving about in a year's time or whatnot. It could possibly be a little bit forgettable in terms of just the writing style, but I did really enjoy it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I'm going to talk about is my audiobook that I read this week. I actually flew through this audiobook, and one of the reasons why is because I kind of dedicated some of my train time this week to listening to it, because I only had a few days left of it on my library app. So it was Bad Blood, Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley Startup by Carreyrou, and this is basically a non-fiction story about Theranos, which was this kind of blood testing company that started up and basically was going, like, literally was up and running for about 15 years, and they couldn't do anything that they really were saying that they were doing, and they got loads of investors in. There was like millions invested in it. The founder, Elizabeth Holmes, she started kind of the company when she was like 20 or 21, like really, really young, and she should have been in a really inspiring story, but she kind of became this massive scandal because she just wasn't a very good boss. She wasn't a particularly good leader of a company, and she was a liar. Her company couldn't do anything that they said it would do. So it was really interesting. It took me a while to get into this book. I will say that it could be because it was an audiobook and it was a non-fiction read, but also I think because this is not my normal read. You guys have been around for a while, you know I don't really read things about like tech startups or Silicon Valley. It's just not my area of interest at all, but I'd heard some good things about this. My boyfriend had raved about it before, and some other people in work, some people who were more kind of like tech minded than me. My interest was piqued and my library had it, so I said I might as well just give it a go and see if I liked it, and I did really enjoy it. And it's one of those books that when you're reading it you get really, really angry just because of the way all the people are treated in this company. I just hate, I'm not someone who has any kind of dreams about owning my own company or running my own business. It's not really something that, I'm not really business minded like that. I know that will never be something that I will do. I will always be someone who will have a boss. I know that's kind of the way my life will be. And so hearing things about people who are just, you know, doing their day-to-day work, trying really hard to make the world better in this sense, because this is supposed to be like a medical health blood testing company that's supposed to help people who are sick, and people who are really dreaming of being able to make amazing things happen. And when they question things, or when, you know, they start wondering about the claims that the company's making, and the way they're treated, and the way they're just like fired like that and like marched out of the building and just treated with absolutely no respect, it just definitely boils my blood, and it just really, really annoys me, because I know how easy it could be just to end up in a company that just treats you like shit. And yeah, it's one of those fears as someone, like, you never really know, you're always taking a chance, and you never really know what kind of place you're going to end up in. And yeah, I say working for Theranos was just a really horrible job. I really like the investigation side of this. Obviously I work in media now, I used to be a journalist, so seeing the investigation side of this was so interesting. And weirdly, I don't know why, but I really want to watch Spotlight, which was another kind of investigative reporting. I think it's just because just that reporting, the deep dive reporting, just reminded me a little bit of Spotlight, and I think I just wanted to read, I just want to go and watch Spotlight now again, because I'm like, ooh, investigative reporting, I want to like watch more things about it. The journalist that's still in me was just, yeah, I really loved the story, and I found it just like a really great story to like sink your teeth into. I love when you get stories like that. I thought the pacing of this was really good. You get a really kind of full story of Theranos before you kind of get into the real reporting bit. You get a really solid idea of what the company was like from start to finish, the people who all the kind of the ups and downs in there. One of the things I did find, there was a lot of emphasis put on Elizabeth Holmes, the founder's relationship with her kind of second in charge, who was an older man, about 20 years older than her. And I just wonder sometimes, would it be the same if it was the opposite way around, if he was the CEO and she was like his second in charge? If there was a relationship, would there be so much of an emphasis on that if that was what was happening, other than her being a young female founder in relationship with her older second in charge? I don't know. I've had people say that they think it would actually be worse, so I would love to know your opinion on that if you've read this book, what you think of that. So I gave this like a 3.5 to a 4 stars. I kind of don't want to give it a full 4 stars, because it took me a little while to get into it, and there were some kind of things just like medical jargon used, and just like the descriptions. I think the author did a really great job trying to describe everything that what Theranos was trying to do, and how it worked and how it failed, and all the kind of medical stuff there. But I just don't have that type of mind that I'm able to really understand that, so I found some of that a little bit difficult, so that's why I'm kind of in between a 3.5. And then the last book I read this week was The 7.5 Deaths of Evan Hardcastle by Stuart Turton, and this was really interesting. This is one I've heard a lot about. This is like a historical fiction mystery thriller, also sci-fi, and it's basically about this man who wakes up in a body one day. It's set in the early 1900s, no, not the early, I think it's about 1930s maybe. I can't remember, I don't actually know if it's I think it's after the First World War. So it's in the 1900s, and we follow this man who wakes up, and he can't really remember who he is. And throughout the course of the day, all these weird things are happening to him. He's kind of in this house, there's this party going on, and then he seems to be like there's like someone after him, and then the next day he wakes up and he's in a completely different body, and it turns out that he has 8 days and 8 different bodies to try and solve the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle, who is a character in the book. And he basically is reliving the same day over and over again in the bodies of these different people, and he needs to try and figure out the mystery. This was really enjoyable. I really kind of like the body hopping thing of it, and I like the fact that he was in different kind of really different type of people, different personalities, and how those personalities affected him and affected his judgment sometimes. I thought that was really interesting, how he kind of had to fight the actual person he was inhabiting at times. I really like that. I will say this book is really it's really well put together. It's very vivid and it's very intense, and I found there were times where I kind of found myself almost like mentally exhausted reading it, because I think I was just thinking so much and there was just so much happening, and I was trying to piece everything together, that it was genuinely just like tiring my brain out. It was exhausting for me. And there were times as well where the character, it felt like he was so close to doing something, and then he would just kind of give up, and I was just it would get to that point and I was hoping he'd figure out something or make this big breakthrough, and then he'd give up, and I just get so frustrated at it. It was so annoying. But it did definitely keep me really entertained until the end of it. I definitely did not guess the end of it. I would love to know more, like I wish there was kind of more about why they were there, why this loop was happening. There's some explanation given, but I would love to just kind of see more of that world expanded, and it would be really interesting. And I would definitely read more by Stuart Turton. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, really enjoyed it, and I do recommend. Everything I read this week, please let me know below if you've read any of these books, what you've been reading this week. I would love to know, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.